bring number one up at altitude down to idle. That almost killed us. So what happens if we bring number two to idle? Now, we learned some things, which again, when it gets to the end, it'll make more sense, but so that's what we chose to do. As soon as we brought number two to idle, we now found that we were able to slow down from 160 down to about 138, 140-ish. So it was like, okay, it's a little better. RPM still sitting at 100, like, okay, we're working it out. This is not too bad. So then we thought about, hey, what if we put the engine into manual mode and manually control it? You have engine control levers in the ceiling, and then there's beep switches on the collective to move them, right? So we go, okay, let's try that. So we're on the one engine, we put it into manual, and now all of a sudden we're getting fluctuations in the RPM of a couple percent when you see that. And so that was really, we both saw that, we're like, no, put it back to auto. So we put it back to auto, it stabilizes back to 100. That was one of the things I've heard most about this is why didn't you guys just try and manipulate that engine control lever, the ECL? Did you think about doing that? We did. We had that discussion. Throttles are connected with a Teleflex cable back to the engine. Those things, at times, even when we were doing engine rinses and we manually moved those, sometimes they would break. Plus, we had a fire, like a bad one, and we didn't know to what extent things were damaged up in the ceiling where all the smoke was coming from, right? So we really decided that we don't want to be in a stressful situation and having him have to coordinate moving that lever and having it maybe go too far, and now all of a sudden we dropped the RPM off, installed the rotor. Like it was just, we decided no, it's not going to work. So now here we are still on the second pass, right on downwind. We've had this whole discussion, and let's see. So now I was like, well, okay, we're helicopter pilots. We've all done this. So we're going to auto this in, David. We're going to just line up. At least we're still flying. So, like we can choose when we're gonna enter. This should be as routine as any other touchdown that we've all done throughout our career. So, okay, so here we go. We're on downwind for 3.6. I was at about 500 feet. I'm like, I'm so fast, I just wanted, I don't know, at the time it just made sense. I'm like, I'll be a little bit lower. That way I can kind of have my rate of closure and what I've got left with that high rate of speed to see how much I can slow down. This is what I'm thinking. So then the reality is, we're lined up on final for 3.6. I tell David to bring number one to idle, because that's what we were flying on. He brings it to idle, and now, immediately, if you count 1,001 up, that fast, RPM goes from 100 down to 67. So I'm like, okay, like there's no coming back from that. It's like you're done. It's gonna stall. Like there's no way, right? So again, this is a theme of this day of me screaming at David to bring the engine back, and he's like, I am. So here we go, and he brings it back. It spools up. You feel the aircraft going and everything, and it comes back to 100, and it was like, okay, I think I kind of see what we can do here. So we're going upwind, because we're going around from that whole maneuver. I'm going upwind, and I was like, all right, David, this is what we're gonna do. We just saw that we can go down to 67%, the aircraft can still keep flying. So we're gonna alternate and just use that maneuver to trade off our ground speed, airspeed, and altitude, and just get down to the ground. So this time, went out even further, I'd say about 3 miles or so, maybe 4, south of the airport. Went down 400 feet, which, by the way, there's nothing but swamps and trees south of Houma, for those of you who haven't been there. And and so we just did that maneuver. David says he recalls doing that about 8 times, of going from flight down to idle, RPM getting down to about 67%, and then just pulling it back up to flight, and then we'd wait, it'd get to about maybe 90, 95, and then he'd bring it back to idle again. And so we just alternated that, right? And eventually, we got down, I'd say probably about 20, 30 feet, and we had the discussion too. It was like, all right, we're gonna, when I tell you, cut both engines, and we're gonna just land it. So that's what we did. Eventually, we cut both engines. We wound up sliding. It was close to 1,000 feet on the runway, because my eyes were outside the whole time. Like once we got down close, so I don't remember what the actual airspeed was indicating or really how fast we were going. I just remember going we're about to run out of runway, so we're about to have to go and do this again, or this is gonna be it. And I think both of us have had just about enough at that point. So it was like, okay, this is it, we're gonna commit. So he cuts both engines, we slide about our 1,000 feet. This is an interesting thing during that time, just kind of how the brain works and all this. I remember thinking, okay, I have 67% NR, we're about to hit the concrete, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna pull everything I got, and man, I remember thinking, I am for sure gonna be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, right now. Like, it's about to happen, and I'm about to live it. And I remember, as we're sliding, I remember going, I wonder if my legs work. I really, and I remember pushing, pedaling slowly but surely on each side. I'm like, okay, I can move my toes, I can move my feet like that. Just interesting thoughts. So now here we go, we're screaming down the concrete, or the pavement, and now we're starting to veer towards the grass. And so David and I are both having the same thought simultaneously of, please don't roll, please don't roll, please don't roll, please don't roll. And sure enough, it was about 15, 20 feet in the grass, and we just came to a stop. And it was just like we're okay, we're here. You know, it's just like, it's a miracle. And so we, some kind of funny stuff that happened there. So we immediately just start hitting each other on the shoulder, you know, just kind of punching each other and just screaming, you know, like, you know, we made it, just, yeah. Like, really, I mean, it was just that feeling that, it was pretty amazing. And about that time, I look out, because I'm on the right side, Dave's on the left, so I'm looking that way, and I see the slider open, and I see the passengers start tearing out. Can't blame them. Can't blame them at all. And so I remember I was like, yeah, we should probably go, you know, so we, so out we go. The follow-up to all this was, everybody got out of the aircraft on their own, you know, of their own accord. Nobody was hurt. One guy who sat in the back row, because that was where the main touchdown occurred, right? He had some back issues, but to my knowledge, he was discharged later that day as no injuries. So nobody was hurt. I remember my dinner was still sitting on the side of the seat that I got from offshore, and I remember having to get everyone's bags after that. And this was one of those funny moments that sticks with me too, where I'm going back there, the door only opens so far. I have some pictures, I have a video of the landing, we're gonna get to all that in just a minute, but I remember the door only opened so far, so I'm going back there. They had some film equipment in this big duffel bag, right? So I go there, get my hands on it, and the guy goes, oh, could you be careful with that? I remember you just do one of those like, yes I will. It's just, dude, come on. Anyway, so that kind of summed up the whole thing. I did fail to mention things that did happen. There's one other funny thing with this, but after we declared an emergency with the tower, we did notify company, and then we did brief the passengers. This is one of those things that, I don't know, was going through my mind again, the way the brain works, right? Where I go, the reality of what we do, legal, right? So if I'm not briefing people, if I'm not, you know, consulting and doing things in that order of, you know, air traffic control, notify the company, notify passengers, hey David, before we touch the ground, make sure you tell them to brace, like, wanted to make sure we got all those ducks in a row, and we did. It's worth thinking about those things from time to time, especially when you're flying, because it's like, yeah, it's one thing, you know, you make it through, everyone's okay, but then, I don't know, you think about it, like, what happens on the legal side when someone comes after you later or whatever, because you know, hey, no one ever told me. So maybe that's true, maybe it's not, that's just the way I kind of always thought about it. So it did work well. It was cool that we hit all those things as we went through it. So, okay, let's go ahead and go to this next thing. So this was taken by I don't know who. You can see us right here. This is our final pass when we came in. Try and pay attention if you can. You can see the coning on the blades, especially right before we touch down. I mean, it's significant. It's pretty intense. It's funny because some of my friends that were there when they knew we had a problem, they were like, it really didn't look that bad. It looks like you guys just botched the auto. It's like, you can only auto rotate for 1 second at a time. See that? Yeah, so then we just veered off into the grass, and that's where we came to a stop. That was that. So then these were some pictures. All this stuff is online, by the way. You can Google the N number and it all comes up. So we can see the mains did fold up on both sides, but we can also look at, you can see the blade pitch to the way things are set. Collective was all the way against the ground up until the last little bit when I pulled what I could. A lot of people have asked what the touchdown was like. It felt like you're just sitting in your chair. It was really soft. That was kind of an amazing thing. So you can see us there with it. Let's see. Yeah, someone took this with all the first responders. Last thing, or let's see, second to last thing. So quick thing on the 139. So there's your, this is from the NTSB prelim report. So collective torque tubes, all right, connecting rod, then the torque tube up in the ceiling, okay? This is the one that got rubbed by wiring and then caught that whole torque tube on fire because it's made out of carbon fiber. So what that allowed was, and this is my understanding, again, I don't want to speak, officially on any capacity because we're still waiting the final NTSB report, but from what I have been told, when that tube caught on fire, it twisted. And so now we had basically a fixed pitch failure in the main rotor. So that's why we couldn't auto. That's why things with the collective full down, we were pulling so much power, right? Because the helicopter's flying as if we're flying the collective pretty much all the way up. So yeah, you can see just that was, it got, from what I understand, this rivet over 1,000 hours just rubbed on the wire, and then eventually it chafed through, and then it allowed all that electricity to just go into the torque tube. And that's what happened. So, last thing, and then I will be concluded up here. The aftermath of all this, okay? I had, the company did great. They asked us a lot about how are you guys doing? What do you guys need? Do you need time off? Do you want to get back and fly the next day? Like, what do you want to do? It's all up to you. You guys call it. Well, I don't know. I mean, David and I were like, we feel fine. There's no issues. They cleared us to work. We did the return to work check and all those kinds of things. And everyone was like, yeah, you guys are fine. You're healthy. There's no issues. We talked to, there was a therapist who called us and she's like, yeah, you guys sound fine. How do you feel? And we're like, we feel fine. She says, yeah, okay, well, it wasn't until now looking back that I realized just how mentally disconnected I was for about a year. It was, being at home and, like you get asked to do things or you're involved with family, and I just remember not caring about really, the only place I felt normal was in the cockpit. That was it. I mean, everything else was very difficult. So that's really, I know we spent most of the time talking about this whole incident, but if there's one thing I could pass, it would be that take advantage of those things that are available to you. And it doesn't even have to be about flying, but any number of things that can go on in life. I think a lot of times, especially, let's be honest, in this industry, we're all tough people, right? We're out there, we're flying. Like, we get the job done, and that's how it goes. But if I could go back, I would have done that, because it definitely would have made my life a lot better. It would have helped me process a lot more of this in a lot better way. I can tell you that much. So I would ask you all to keep that in mind. God forbid you ever have to go through something like this. Okay? But that's all I've got. I appreciate you all listening very much. Seriously, thank you for having me here. Y'all have a great day.